France's panic move. The secret plan to survive without Africa. For decades, an empire was built not on land, but on a simple, brutal bargains. Resources flowed out of Africa, and wealth flowed into France. It was a system that powered French industry, funded its welfare state, and secured its place on the world stage. But listen closely. That sound you hear is the sound of that bargain breaking. A quick montage. President Emmanuel Macron looking stern at a press conference. A graph showing France's trade with Africa plummeting. A headline about Russian Wagner forces in Mali. Nations across Africa are rising up, tearing up the old contracts, and expelling their former masters. And in the halls of power in Paris, a single, terrifying question is being asked. What happens when the resources stop? Tonight, we uncover France's desperate, multi-billion euro plan to survive in a world where it can no longer rely on Africa. France's panic move. The secret plan to survive without Africa. The old empire, how France built its fortune on African soil. To understand the panic, you must first understand the empire. For generations, France maintained a neo-colonial grip on its former colonies in Africa through a system known as France-Afrique. It was a web of control, military control, with bases from Senegal to Djibouti. Financial control, through the CFA franc, which tethered African economies to the French treasury. And most importantly, resource control. Uranium from Niger powered France's nuclear reactors. Oil from Gabon fueled its cars. And a steady stream of cobalt, bauxite, and other minerals fed its industries. This wasn't just trade. It was a lifeline. It allowed France to punch far above its weight, presenting itself as a self-sufficient European power. But beneath the surface, resentment was building. A new generation of Africans, connected and aware, saw the exploitation for what it was, and the stage was set for a revolution. The African refusal, the collapse of the old order. The collapse began not with a whisper, but with a roar from the Sahel, the very region France considered its backyard. One by one, the dominoes fell. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, in swift, popular military coups. Pro-French governments were toppled. The new leader's first order of business, kicking out the French military and annulling the exploitative mining contracts. The impact was immediate and catastrophic for the French model. Their privileged access to some of the world's most critical resources vanished almost overnight. But the problem was bigger than just the Sahel. Across the continent, African nations were waking up. They saw China offering infrastructure without political strings, and Russia offering security cooperation without the colonial baggage. France was no longer the only game in town. The message was clear. Africa was closed for business as usual. And in Paris, the panic began to set in. Please like and subscribe to help us to continue creating verifies content like this. The Great Pivot. France's three-pronged survival strategy. Faced with an existential threat to its economic model, France is now executing a dramatic, high-stakes pivot. This is not a minor adjustment. It's a complete overhaul of its national strategy, built on three key pillars. Pillar 1. The Fortress France refinery plan. First, France is trying to bring the value chain home. The crown jewel of this effort is the electro-mobility materials Europe. Them project a massive new refinery near Bordeaux. By 2028, it is slated to process 20,000 tons of nickel and 1,500 tons of cobalt annually. The goal? To control the processing of these critical minerals. The most valuable step on French soil, even if the raw ore comes from Canada or Brazil. The high-value output, the battery-grade materials, will be made in France. Pillar 2. The partnership. Rebrand in Africa. Second, France is attempting a radical rebrand of its African relations. The old language of extraction is out. The new language of partnership and co-development is in. The deal with Nigeria is the perfect example. Instead of just taking lithium, France is promising to help Nigeria build its own processing capacity. They're funding geological surveys and talking about building the infrastructure of tomorrow. It's a charm offensive designed to secure new, more stable partners in a continent that now deeply distrusts them. Pillar 3. The desperate diversification dash. Third, France is scrambling to find minerals anywhere but its former backyard. They are actively courting suppliers in Latin America, Canada, and Southeast Asia. The aim is to reduce their vulnerability to any single region. But in a world where every industrialized nation is racing for the same critical minerals, this is a brutally competitive and expensive endeavor. The obstacles why France's plan could fail. This grand plan looks good on paper, but the road to energy independence is littered with immense obstacles, and France may be too late to the game. Obstacle 1. China's head start. While France is planning one refinery, China already controls over 80% of the world's battery material processing. They have a decade-long head start and a global stranglehold on the supply chain. Catching up is a monumental task. Obstacle 2. The trust deficit. Can a leopard change its spots? Many across Africa view France's new partnership model as pure rhetoric extraction in a friendlier costume, without genuine, equitable deals that clearly benefit African nations. The MOUs will remain just pieces of paper. Obstacle 3. The raw material problems. A refinery in France is useless without a guaranteed cheap flow of raw ore. That ore still has to be mined somewhere, and those mines are subject to the same geopolitical risks, environmental protests, and market volatility that France is trying to escape. They've swapped one dependency for another. The verdict: a nation at a crossroads. So, what does this all mean?